What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here to break down Le'Veon Bell. A new chapter for Bell has begun in his career. A all-pro, Pro Bowl level, top of the league, best back in the league, Le'Veon Bell with the Pittsburgh Steelers goes through the fiasco of the holdout, finds a big contract in New York with the Jets, and then from day one, they did not get along. Le'Veon Bell could not see eye to eye with Adam Gase. Adam Gase could not see eye to eye with Le'Veon Bell. You almost wonder why the Jets signed him, because Adam Gase really didn't want him around. And then number two, why Le'Veon Bell agreed to play for the New York Jets without getting a sense of what he was going to do in New York. Now Le'Veon Bell has almost completely changed. He's gotten just a piece of a big-time contract, and he knows that he's in a position now, after straight up being released by the New York Jets. He cannot ask for big-time money, and fair enough, he's no longer even close to the same player that he was in Pittsburgh. Or is he? That's the question. The Kansas City Chiefs have signed Le'Veon Bell to a 1-year deal. So Le'Veon Bell is a member of the Kansas City Chiefs until the end of 2020, giving Bell a new opportunity inside a great offense, perhaps the best in the league, with one of the best head coaches in the league, who consistently has found production out of running backs. He gets to join Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce in Kansas City, the reigning Super Bowl champions, and combine in a backfield with a first-round pick in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So Le'Veon Bell is in a situation that it really can't get a lot better. Now, he probably would prefer to straight up just be the lead back somewhere, but given his production over the past year and a bit with New York, there's no team in the NFL that would just straight up allow Le'Veon Bell to be the bell cow anymore. Those days are over. But in this video, I want to talk about Le'Veon Bell, his impact on the Chiefs, how this changes the Chiefs' attack offensively, whether I think it's worth it or not, for Bell and the Chiefs, the fantasy implications of this signing for Le'Veon Bell going to Kansas City, and much more. Does this change the outlook of the AFC? Does this change the dynamic of the Chiefs and the Chiefs' offense? All that and more. Before I dive into this signing, Le'Veon Bell, the former All-Pro, to the Kansas City Super Bowl champion Chiefs, make sure you do Gronk spike the like button, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for more NFL signings, breakdowns, especially the case during the offseason. I cover just about every big-time signing, trade, and move in the NFL. So if you enjoy this video and this analysis, you will definitely enjoy this channel. Also, comment your opinion on Le'Veon Bell going to Kansas City. I'm going to give you my opinion, but I'd also like to hear your thoughts, your opinion on this move. Do you think this is excellent for the Chiefs? Do you think this is awesome for Le'Veon Bell? Where do you stand on this move? And do you think it was the right move for the Jets to let Bell go? Let me know in the comment section below. So Le'Veon Bell, guys, he is, like I said, a former Pro Bowl back. This is a guy who at one point in his NFL career was referred to as the best running back in the NFL for his vision, his quickness in the hole. He was never the most dynamic runner straight up in terms of pure speed, but he had a great ability to see a hole, hit a hole, and burst, and really run through contact very well. I think the thing that I really loved about Le'Veon Bell in his prime, which I don't know if he's still in his prime, we'll have to answer those questions when we see him in Kansas City, I think, because getting a little off track here, Le'Veon Bell and no running back and no player really can be analyzed inside that Jets organization at this moment. The Jets in 2020 are, to me, personally, my opinion, one of the worst football teams I've ever laid my eyes on. So for me to say that Le'Veon Bell is absolutely finished with no shed of evidence to say that, no offensive line, quarterback is below average, receivers don't take the top off and hurt a defense in that way, so they can focus on Le'Veon Bell. He's the primary focus. There are questions, I guess, as well with, was Le'Veon Bell overrated in Pittsburgh because he was behind arguably the best run-blocking offensive line in the NFL at the time? He had a Hall of Fame quarterback. He had Antonio Brown, who was the best receiver in the league at that time, taking the top off of defense along with Martavis Bryant and other guys that were within the fold there. And you had to worry about the pass game first. Le'Veon Bell was almost a complementary element to what they did in Pittsburgh. So was he always overrated when he did sign with the Jets? And to me, you guys know how I stand on running backs. If you follow this channel, you understand that I am not a running back guy. And what I mean by that is, don't get me wrong, I love watching running backs play. I love running backs as players, the style of play, all the things they can do, the versatility at the position, just the electric style, and you want to watch a lot of these running backs in the NFL. It's one of the most exciting positions in the sport. But in terms of value, it continues to be proven that running backs should not be paid a certain amount of money because the consistency is not there. They're very reliant on players around them more so than other positions in the league, offensive line in particular, quarterback as well. And they're injury prone. They're unreliable. So even a guy like Le'Veon Bell, who can catch the ball, can run the ball, seemingly has no weakness in his prime at his position, was never as valuable as maybe some people thought because, again, he had so much around him that of course he was going to succeed, even if he was worse than, the talent that he had, which he was very talented, I believe, at the time. So the question is, what does Le'Veon Bell have left, right? He's 28 years old, so he's really not that old. He's born in 92, so he's only 4 years older than me. He's 6'1", 225. He looks to have slimmed down over the past couple of years. I think he was a little bit slow last year. When I watched him last season, I felt he looked a little slower than the guy we saw in Pittsburgh. He looked a little bit indecisive. He looked a little bit lacking the juice and the just all-world ability to cut that we saw from Bell in his prime with Pittsburgh. And this year, I think he's shown aspects of what made him a great player. I think his offensive line was a little better coming into this year than last year. It was hard to be worse, although it's never been great in New York. I think Le'Veon Bell is a running back right now that he's never going to hit the home run. He is never really going to make a huge play in any facet of the game. I don't think you're going to see Le'Veon Bell break 30-yard, 40-yard runs. I don't think you're going to see Le'Veon Bell break 30, 40-yard screen passes, receptions, whatever it may be. But I think Le'Veon Bell is still a player that, due to his intelligence at the position, due to his versatility, due to the craft that he has down, I respect him in that regard. He's a good pass blocker. He can catch the ball very well. He can run routes out of the backfield or at receiver in the slot. He can also pick a hole and overpower somebody to pick up 1 or 2 yards in short yardage. And I think that's exactly what the Chiefs are looking for in Le'Veon Bell. I think it's also what they were looking for in Miami with Le'Veon Bell. I don't think Le'Veon Bell is as explosive as Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't think he's going to bring you that game-breaking, changing ability. But in terms of the situations, the short yardage, the receiving game, the pass blocking, he can help Patrick Mahomes, and I believe he can help this offense in one facet in particular where they've been very weak this season, and that is just allowing defenses to respect the running game, especially on 3rd and short. I mean, part of the problem in Kansas City, what I've seen from them so far with their offense, is teams simply do not respect them running the ball at all. Edwards-Helaire was drafted in the 1st round, more so for his receiving ability than his rushing ability. Now, Bell, I think, is probably a better receiver at this point in his career just because he's a good route runner, he has great hands, and he's very savvy in that way in the receiving game. He's not as explosive as a runner anymore, which takes away from that facet of the game. But when you just compare the size of the two players, Bell and Clyde, and when you compare the power of Bell and the ability to just see a hole open up and break, and I think that's a strength of both of their games that I think is going to be interchangeable, where Bell and Clyde are both built in terms of a running style, not on their speed or their athleticism, but on their quickness, their feet, and their vision. So in that way, I think you're going to see no break in Clyde to Bell. I think where you're going to see a break is Clyde maybe has a little bit more burst, and I think Bell has a little bit more of the smarts, the NFL intelligence. And he has a little bit more power, in my opinion, although Clyde's sneaky powerful as well, as he's shown this season. But I would say in short yardage, Bell is going to become that guy. While I do feel like Clyde will still be the lead back, I think Bell will be a more than situational player. I think for fantasy, this is going to be a very difficult situation to get a hold of and to understand and to grasp from week to week. That's why I would probably prefer to not own either player, because I think there's a chance that in one game, Bell has a great game. In one game, Clyde has a great game. It's going to become very muffled, I think, very noisy in terms of, okay, 1 week, who's going to get the ball in what situations. I think they're almost identical in terms of what they offer. So that makes it interchangeable, and for Andy Reid to just ride with the hot hand. Now, I do tend to side with the young first-round pick who's looked good in his role already, and I would rather have him over Bell. But I think it's almost going to make both of them, their stock drop pretty drastically. So if you're trying to go out there and trade for Le'Veon Bell, I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably rather trade him away just to not deal with the whole situation. And if you're still able to get something top-notch out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, then I would do that. But don't trade him for nothing, because that's what some people are going to do. Is if I would rather get Clyde. If I was to trade for one of them, I'd rather get Clyde and trade away Bell. But I'm just throwing that out there for fantasy purposes. I probably don't want either, because I could see a situation where they both eat into each other's work. And this is a very pass-heavy offense. They might be flex-worthy, but I don't see them being top upper echelon, Clyde running back 1, Bell running back 2 like the Browns, because they just don't run the ball enough, in my opinion. So it's really not going to work out for either one. But this is a situation for Bell where even in limited work, he can show what he still has as a player. He can show if he still has it, and that could potentially set him up for a long-term contract or for like a 2 to 3 year contract elsewhere in the offseason. He was straight up cut by the Jets, and if you're Bell, I think, honestly, go out there, prove people wrong. I hope he does, to be honest with you. I think he fits this offense well. Typically with Andy Reid offensive lines, they do love those patient runners that are able to pick the hole, and just the zone scheme up front that they often run is very good for a running back style like Le'Veon Bell. So I think it's a good fit from a football perspective. But I just wouldn't expect a lot. Like people saying this is like Thanos getting the last, gem. It's like, no, it's not. Like Le'Veon Bell is a little bit better than a backup running back right now. Like he's still a starter on probably 10 teams in the league, and he's a nice backup to have. That's my opinion. I don't think he's nearly the same player he was in Pittsburgh. I don't think he's nearly the same athlete he was in Pittsburgh. Like, I think those days are over. Can he still help a team win games? Yeah, he can. And can he help in certain facets of the game? Yes, I believe that still. But Chiefs fans, just don't get overly excited. I think this is closer to like Leonard Fournette with the Bucks than anything we've seen with a running back going to a team. I mean, even Melvin Gordon in Denver hasn't done a lot, and I thought he was in a better situation or was a better back than Bell and Fournette last year. So I don't know. Like, it's running backs don't change or move the needle at all to me. No matter the team that Bell was going to go on, I don't think he was going to move the needle. Is he a nice asset to have? Is he a nice complementary piece to have for Patrick Mahomes in this offense? Of course. Don't get me wrong. I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well, but I just don't think this does a lot. Like, don't get too excited. But overall, it's a solid move. There's no risk in it involved. I'm assuming it's not for a lot of money, and it's only a 1-year contract. So if he does become some sort of issue, which I've never bought into those stories with Le'Veon Bell, I don't think he's an issue. I think he's just a guy that was on a really bad team with a coach who didn't like him, and he didn't like the coach, and I've been there personally. And I just feel like that happens with athletes. Like, you don't want to be on the team. You don't want to give 100%. And it seemed like he was really coming in this offseason looking in great shape, wanting to prove people wrong. And given the situation he's been in, behind the offensive line that he was behind, with the quarterback that he was with, he was never really given a great opportunity. Again, guys, unless you're generational at running back, unless you're a Hall of Famer, it's very, very rare that a guy can overcome all of those odds at running back. And I would even argue right now in the league that we have today, I'd argue that even those players will struggle at times. So Bell is still a solid player. He's still worth the money. He's still worth the 1-year contract. He was never worth it for the Jets, but just don't get too excited and your expectations be too high, because you'll probably be let down. All right, guys, that's my view, my thoughts on Le'Veon Bell to the Chiefs. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to Gronk spike that like button, and of course, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more free agency and NFL breakdowns just like this. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. If you have any Bell-related questions, fantasy or other, leave them in the comment section below. Peace.